وآله وسلم. Today I wanted to address a topic, and inshallah this may be part 1, we may have to have part 2 and 3, maybe part 2 or part 3 might be more of a panel discussion, inshallah, engage or bring in more people to discuss this very important topic that has to do with the most important element in the life of, in my opinion, in the life of any human being, but of course, obviously, in the life of a believer. And that has to do with faith itself. Struggling with faith. And now struggling, the title that I chose, Struggling with Faith, basically may mean one of two things. One is to struggle through your faith. Like with your faith, you basically struggle. With your faith, you struggle in life. And this life is, of course, obviously, but a struggle. And the other meaning that many people, especially nowadays, can relate to, is to struggle with faith itself. People are struggling with faith itself. We intentionally turn it off. We're about to play a video, inshallah. I don't want to be seen. It's enough that they see my smile, man. So I wanted to share this video with you. This is just a short portion of a longer, it's actually a book that was authored by this scientist. He's an Egyptian scientist, Dr. Mustafa Mahmoud, rahimahullah. May Allah have mercy on him. I had a very quick chance to meet with or see him in person and talk to him, or say salam to him. Just saw him. We did not engage at the age of 13 in the 80s, late 80s, back in Egypt. May Allah have mercy on him. He used to be an atheist. He's a scientist. And then in this particular book, he talks about his journey from atheism into Iman and belief. But this is a very short portion that talks about, this is not his story from the beginning, but this is a turning point in his life. There's an English subtitle, so inshallah if we can turn off the light, I will let you inshallah just reflect and try to follow, and maybe I will move so that you can see it, inshallah. Ready? Bismillah.
من 30 سنة قبل ما يكون لي أي اهتمامات بالدين بالمرة، وكان كل تفكيري يوميها تفكير علمي مادي، وكنت مبتعد عن الدين، وكنت اهتماماتي مختلفة تماما. فيوميها حصلت الحكاية الغريبة دي. أنا يوميها كان من عادتي إني أسهر بالليل لساعة متأخرة وانام وبعدين أصحى متأخر. فيوميها التليفون رن بدري، فبشيل السماعة بقول ألو وأنا بتاوب. بصيت لقيت اللي على الطرف الآخر هو المرحوم جلال العشري الناقد المعروف. بيقول لي الله أنت نايم؟ لا أنا متأسف أنا صحيتك خلاص أنا هكلمك تاني. قلت له يا أخي ما خلاص صحتني ما تكلمني بقى. قال لي لا خلاص بقى معلش أنا متأسف، وراح حط السماعة وأنا حطيت السماعة ونمت فورا بعد ما وضعت السماعة. وحلمت بالآتي، حلمت إني بشوف الله يرحمه جلال العشري ماشي في شارع سليمان باشا ومعاه الزميل شوقي عبد الحكيم، وده كان زميل في مجلة صباح الخير وأحد كتابها يميها. والاثنين قاعدين يتكلموا كلام جد قوي، انجليزي كده ونقد ومش عارف ايه وكتب وحاجات بالشكل ده. المهم صحيت زي العاده متاخر، وبعدين اول حاجه ضربت التليفون لمرحوم جلال العشري، قلت له يا اخي تصور ان انا حلمت بيك. فقال لي ايه؟ حلمت بيا ازاي؟ قلت له شفتك ماشي في شارع سليمان باشا مع شوقي عبد الحكيم وبتتكلموا في كذا كذا ومش عارف ايه. بصيت لقيته على الطرف الاخر، يعني هتقع من ايده السماعه. قال لي ازاي؟ مش ممكن، ده حصل ده بالظبط. في نفس اللحظة دي أنا كنت ماشي مع شوقي عبد الحكيم وكنا بنتكلم ونقول الكلام اللي أنت بتقوله ده. مش ممكن. أنا بقى طبعا اللي جالي ذهول أكتر، وفعلا وقعت السماعة من إيدي وابتدت عندي دوامة من إعادة النظر في كل شيء. معنى كده إن أنا شفت من غير عينين وسمعت من غير أذن. طب إزاي حصل؟ أنا يوميها ما كانتش اهتماماتي دينية أبدا، فكان اهتماماتي كلها بالكتير بقى مسائل زي الثيوسوفي واليوجا، وأعرف إن الثيوسوفي واليوجا بالذات تناولت هذه الموضوعات، فعكفت على كتب الثيوسوفي وقريت الموضوع، فقال لك ده اسمه الجلاء البصري أو كلير فوينس، والجلاء السمعي أو كلير أودينس، وإن فيه ممكن تمرينات ورياضات تقوي هذه الموهبة. عظيم. أنا ما اكتفيتش بالكتب ورحت للسفير الهندي يميها كان اسمه أبابانت، وكلمته في الموضوع وقال لي على تمرين اسمه شوريا نمشكر، علمني التمرين ده وكده، ونصحني بكتب عن المديتيشن والكونسنتريشن، وإن الكتب دي ممكن ألاقيها في لندن. فسافرت لندن ورحت المكتبة دي، مكتبة قديمة جدا فيها كتب عتيقة خالص، تراب مغطيها وكده، وقعدنا ندور لغاية ما لقيت الكتب. كنت مبسوط جدا. وبعدين بقول للبياع ايه رأيك في الكتب دي؟ كان راجل انجليزي كده يعني دمه خفيف، قال لي بيني وبينك الكتب دي كلها كلام فارغ ما تسواش 3 مليم، انا مش عارف انت دفعت فيها الثمن ده ازاي، ولا الناس بيجوا من اخر الدنيا يشتروا الدشت الفارغ ده ازاي. النهاية هذه الكتب كانت في المديتيشن والكونسنتريشن وفي تقوية امثال هذه المواهب. نفذتها كلها بالحرف، والنتيجة 0 وفشل كامل، ولم أستطع إني أستعيد هذه التجربة بالمرة أو إني أقوي هذه الموهبة، وما تكررتش. فيعني أنا أشك في إمكانية إن الإنسان بالإرادة يقدر يخضع هذه الظواهر لأمره بحيث انها تيجي على مزاجه. ممكن يفتح دكان بخت وبتاع وشركة تنبؤات، ده كلام فارغ. ده هو ده الجانب البكش في الموضوع. لكن كون انها ظواهر بتحصل، بتحصل. هذه الظواهر لا علاقة لها بالمرة بانهم يقولوا على فلان عنده شفافية، فلان ده صالح، فلان ده متدين، فلان مؤمن، فلان مكشوف عنه الحجاب. كل ده بكش. دي بتحصل لكل الناس، وهي ده نوع من الرزق اللي ربنا يبعثه لكل خلق الله. ما يعني من كل الناس، من كل الملل، وناس بلا ملة، وكمثال الفرعون اللي القرآن حكى عنه واللي حلم بمستقبل مصر لمدة 7 سنين. طيب ايه حكمة هذه الظواهر؟ ان ربنا بيوارب الباب للبعض، وانه بيفوت معلومة من حين لآخر. الحكمة واضحة، هي رحمة من رحمات ربنا ولطف من ألطافه، إن هو يعني يحاول يستدرك بعض الناس بلطف إلى بهذه الأسرار الغيبية، وبيقربهم لحاجات كانوا بيستعجبوا لها. يعني يقول لك أنت مستعجب مثلا ينزل الملك وإنه يوحي إلى النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام. طب ما احنا قلنا لك معلومة هي وصبحت طلعت لقيتها مظبوطة. بيقرب ربنا، ده نوع من اللطف الإلهي، بيحس إنه هو يفوت معلومة الإنسان مبتعد فيقربه. أو بشكل آخر أحيانا بتكون ابتلاءات وفتن، وأحيانا أو دائما هي إقامة للحجة. ربنا بيقيم حجته على جميع الناس، عشان يوم القيامة لما واحد يقول وأنا عرفني أنا معقول هصدق كتب، يوم ربنا يفكروا باليوم ده لما وريتك بنفسي كذا كذا كذا. فهو ربنا بيقيم حجته على كل الناس، أو هو يستدرج البعض منهم والمبتعد إلى يعني القرب وإلى إعادة التفكير وإلى إعادة النظر. أو هي أحيانا بتبقى ابتلاءات وفتن تؤدي إلى أن الشخص يتصور أنه بقى شيخ ويضرب قبة ويبتدي يسترزق من الحكاية دي، يقول لك أشوف الحجاب ومش عارف أكشف الحجاب والحاجات. طبعا أنا عارف السؤال اللي أنتم عاوزين تسألوه دلوقتي، يعني عاوزين تقولوا طيب أنت بعد ما هذا المشوار اللي عملته في الدين وأصبحت دلوقتي تفكيرك ديني من أوله لآخره، يعني هل تعتقد أن ممكن الطريق الديني أو الاجتهاد في العبادة ممكن ينمي هذه المواهب؟ أنا أجاوبكم، أنا أقول لكم نعم، فعلا الاجتهاد في العبادة فعلا بينمي هذه المواهب وبيفتح العين الداخلية للعابد. لكن العابد الحقيقي لا يفكر أبدا في المسائل دي، لا هو عاوز يمشي على المية، ولا عاوز يفتح دكان بخت، ولا عاوز يعرف سعر الدولار بكرة هيبقى كام. إنما هو بيعبد لوجه الله سبحانه وتعالى ولا يفكر إلا في الله سبحانه وتعالى. والعابد العارف الحقيقي لما يلاحظ هذه الظواهر بتحصل له يخفيها ولا يعلنها، وإذا حصل العكس وابتدى يرتزق بيها ويقولها ويعلنها ويتباهى بيها والحاجات دي كلها، فبتكون النتيجة الإبعاد والعياذ بالله. يعني ممكن ينتهي إلى الطعن في دينه من أوله لآخره، لأن هو يبقى في سعادة نفاق مش دينه، ويبقى نوع من استرزاء بس بوسائل إلهية، ويبقى معناها أنه بيستعمل أعلى المواهب لأخس الأغراض. فالشطر الأول من السؤال: هل تؤدي الاجتهاد في العبادة إلى تنمية هذه المواهب؟ أقول نعم ومؤكد تنميها، لكن العابد الحقيقي لا يستهدف إطلاقا هذه الأشياء، وإذا استهدفها يبقى ضد الدين بالدرجة الأولى. طبعا عاوز أكد برضه أن بالذات المنهج الإسلامي أو الطريق الإسلامي هو الصراط المستقيم إلى المعارف العالية دي، وهو يمثل أقرب الطرق للوصول إلى الله سبحانه وتعالى.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. We can turn on the light now, inshallah. Okay. Okay. This is just, Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, Wassalatu Wassalamu ala Rasulillah. This is just an example of how people may turn to faith. Right? People who start in the doubt zone and then come to certainty zone. Right? Now, it is my belief, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, سَنُرِيهِمْ آيَاتِنَا فِي الْآفَاقِ وَفِي أَنفُسِهِمْ حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَهُمْ أَنَّهُ الْحَقِّ أَوَلَمْ يَكْفِ بِرَبِّكَ أَنَّهُ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ شَهِيدٌ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, at the end of Surah Fussilat, verse 53, this is Surah number 41 for those who want the reference. Surah 41 verse 53. Allah says, سَنُرِيهِمْ آيَاتِنَا فِي الْآفَاقِ. Some people translated the meaning as that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala basically is telling us that we meaning here Allah, this is the royal we. Right? Because of the significance of this act, and because it takes mighty power, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when speaking about these kind of events or actions or revelation, anything of great significance that only Allah is able to do, He refers to Himself using the royal we, with a capital W, right? So Allah says, we shall show them our signs in every region of earth, of this. We will show them everywhere signs, our signs, وَفِي أَنفُسِهِمْ, as well as within themselves, in their own lives, in their own life experiences, in their own creation, in their own bodies, whatever experience they go through, we will show them our signs, حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَهُمْ أَنَّهُ الْحَقِّ, until it becomes clear to them that it is the truth. Is it not enough that your Lord witnesses everything? So Allah is saying that we will show them, everyone. So it is my belief that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give each and every one of us and has already, to many, given each and every single one the tools that they need to arrive to the truth. right? And if anyone is deprived from it, then they're excused, right? So what is this? Let's just real quick define this subject matter that we're discussing, faith, right? Faith itself, I mean, the word in Arabic that we translate into faith is iman. And by the way, iman was not commonly used before the revelation of the Quran. At least in the Arabic, in the culture of the Arabs, they did not use that. The word deen, religion, on the other hand, was very common. They used to say, oh, this is deenu abaina. This is the religion of our forefathers. This is the practice or the way of life of our. But the word iman itself, it came after the revelation of the Quran. Right? It was introduced. So what does iman, what is it defined as? Linguistically, the scholars define the word iman as tasdeeq. And tasdeeq means to believe, but it also means to confirm or affirm. This is a very interesting distinction to be made, because what is it that you confirm or affirm? What? No, I'm saying generally, if I come to you and I say, I want you to confirm something for me, what am I asking you to confirm? Right, fact, right? Something that is factual, something that is real, something that is true, truth, right? Something that you can what? Somehow conclude with great level of certainty, right? Without any reasonable doubt, without any doubt, something that you're confirming. You're saying this is true, right? There is no room for. This is not feeling. Feelings are not tangible. Feelings are not something. This. We're talking about truth, conviction, right? So, tasdeeq. Now, the technical definition of iman is that which is confirmed or affirmed, or it's a conviction in the heart or in the mind, right? A statement that is confirmed by a verbal statement and backed up by actual actions through our faculties and body parts, right? So that's the scholars of Islam. There are some scholars who actually go further and they say it is something that increases through acts of obedience, decreases because of sins, right? So it fluctuates. So they recognize that iman is something that fluctuates, something that responds to different stimulus, and that can actually, your level of conviction can increase or decrease. The presence of it or your connection with it can be very strong or it can be very weak. Okay. Now, why am I saying this? Because this is very key when we tackle the issue of doubts, struggling with the faith itself and having problems. It is of the teachings of our scholars, particularly some of my professors, and there was one in particular that was very passionate about this, that we do not have, and again, some may not agree with me on this point, but which is fine, but that we do not have, at least in Islam, right, blind faith. Faith is not blind. Faith has to be a result of conviction, a conviction that comes with knowledge. And part of the evidence that they use is that Allah Azza wa Jalla says, He does not say feel or just accept or embrace that there is no God worthy to be worshipped except Allah. No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, fa'lam. No. You must come to this conclusion. It has to be a conviction, with certainty. Know that there is no God worthy to be worshipped except Allah. And thus, you find that those who I don't want to call it take it for granted, but those who inherited the faith, or those who basically accepted it, or those who connected with it emotionally, but did not go through the struggle and searching for the faith itself and coming upon it and saying, this is the truth, nothing beyond it is the truth, right? You find them more susceptible to doubts than those who came to or arrived to this conclusion through personal struggle and investigation and study, right? Those who study. Now that doesn't mean that scholars don't get, no, actually there's plenty of examples of people who studied or who were scholarly and had doubts, right? But generally speaking, right, those who come to, who arrive to the conclusion that this is the truth, Islam, the existence of Allah Azza wa Jalla, and everything that is tied to faith, those who come to that conclusion based on studying, and then they continue their study and investigate and continue to get answers, right, seem to be doing much better and seem to be stronger in their faith, and they're less susceptible to doubts because they continuously respond to this. Now, could believers have doubts and struggle with faith? Consider this narration collected by Imam Muslim, rahimahullah. He said, جاء ناس من أصحاب النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. Some of the companions of the Prophet came to him. فسألوه. They asked him this question. This is what I love about just that environment and the culture, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where people just were comfortable. I mean, they brought up these subjects and they came and they discussed it. And the Prophet sallallahu made them comfortable, and the Prophet was very accommodating, and they themselves took this matter seriously. But they were still yet, like humble enough, serious enough that they came and discussed these things and brought it up to the Prophet ﷺ's attention and dealt with it. It was not something, unlike those of us who feel, I guess it's a modern, like faith is a personal thing, it's between you. You're not supposed to discuss it with anyone. And you're supposed to struggle with your thoughts and ideas and misconceptions and doubts and, internal like struggle and all of that all to yourself. And you're not supposed to engage anyone. Who said that? Who said that it is personal and it's a taboo? You're not supposed to bring it up or discuss it. Your faith is part of your moral values, and your moral values are reflections of they are a reflection of your faith. So they came to the Prophet and they said to him, إِنَّا نَجِدُ فِي أَنفُسِنَا مَا يَتَعَاظَمُ أَحَدُنَا أَن يَتَكَلَّمَ بِهِ. They said, we get these doubts or these ideas that we are too afraid, or we're so scared, or we will not dare to speak about. It's so offensive and so, So the Prophet says, قَالَ وَقَدْ وَجَدْتُمُوهُ. He said, and you truly found that? You're truly struggling with it, and this is real? You have reached that level? You have attained that? As if it's a level. قَالُوا نَعَمْ. They said, yes, indeed. We have attained that. We have got to that point. The Prophet said, ذَاكَ صَرِيحُ الْإِيمَانِ. That is pure faith. That's faith. Imam al-Nawawi comments on this. He said, the fact that you realized that these doubts or these issues are serious, that you will not dare to ask or talk about, is a sign of faith. In other words, you have reached a level of faith, right? And understanding. And remember what I said, faith is not feelings. It produces feelings and it does, affect your feelings. Faith is what? Knowing. It's conviction. It's based on conviction. It's based on ilm. But when you have these doubts and stuff like that, you realize that these doubts are not founded, or they're offensive, or they're ridiculous, or they're senseless. That means you have reached a level of conviction that makes you resist them. You understand what I'm trying to say? And the fact that we're having these doubts or these passing thoughts in and of itself is not a bad thing. It's also an indication that you're actually thinking, you're processing, that you're using your reasoning, which is how you arrive to that conclusion to begin with, that it's the truth. Am I making any sense? Am I making sense? Do you realize what Imam Nawawi is saying here? Right? So for instance, when someone, I'll give you an example. Do we all know, give me a fact that we all agree upon, like a logical fact. Or it could be mathematical or scientific fact that it's so well known, everybody knows it, believes in it without any doubt. Huh? Yeah?
1 divided by infinity is equal to 0.
MashaAllah alayk. You know, that's a bit complicated. But give me another one. That is much more obvious, like elementary level. Okay, the sun rises from the east. I was thinking of 1 plus 1. Come on, man. 1 plus 1 equals 2. Anyone has doubt about this? Okay, what if someone says, no, I can prove to you that 1 plus 1 is not 2. By the way, I can show you that 1 plus 1 is not always 2. Right? And let's say somebody wants to get philosophical, wants to get a little tricky. They take a drop of water, right? They put a drop. They're like, how many drops? 1 drop. Okay, here's a second drop. They put a second drop. What happens? How many drops do you have now? You just have 1 big drop, right? They're like, there you go. 1 plus 1 is not always 2. Now, would this cast some shadow of a doubt in your mind? Cause you like, oh, maybe he's right? It would for a second, right? No? Yes? Anyone? Would it or would it not? It would, right? You're like, oh, he's got a point. But then what happens? Your conviction kicks in and says, this is ridiculous. This guy is just, playing semantics. He's playing, right? And you're going to realize how ridiculous that claim is. Right? Because though you have 1 big drop, but it's still the result of 2 drops. Because you saw the process, right? You're going to say, oh, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. Just like if someone was to tell me that, you have water, and then when it freezes, it's ice, and then if it evaporates, then it's what? It's, what do they call it? It's vapor, or, right? So, but it's all the same thing. And they try to explain Trinity in that sense. And for a second, it makes you go like, and then you realize that when you really analyze it, that it's ridiculous. Right? It's ridiculous. Again, you're playing, right? So that's what happens when you have conviction. Your conviction, your faith challenges the challenge. Right? The sad part is that most people, especially, they're not at that even like, I don't want to say basic level, but that necessary level of understanding faith in Iman. They have not come to, they have not attained faith or Iman at that level. So what do we do when we have this? Here are some steps, some practical steps that are, that I suggest, and we can of course discuss this further, inshallah ta'ala. Right? And by the way, let me just quickly make a distinction. There's a difference between shak and waswasa. Waswasa is, how like some people obsess about something, like they're thinking, oh, what if this is right? Okay. These kind of passing thoughts, they're not doubts. So you don't panic. Right? Like if you, let's say, something happens, you're like, why would God allow this to happen? Like that thought hit you. And you're like, and then you basically think about it, you process it, you answer it to yourself, and then you move on. That is not doubt. The ulama said the difference between waswasa, or like these passing thoughts and these, and doubt, is that these passing thoughts are not persistent. They don't persist. They just come and they're normally from shaitan, from our weaknesses, from, And simply if you say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, you remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you seek refuge in Allah, Or if you say, Amantu billahi wa rasulih, that's another recommendation the Prophet gave, to say, I believe in Allah and His Prophet, it will go away. It will not last. But doubts, the ones that are persistent, where you're having an internal conflict, something is not, you're not at peace, and the same subject or the same topic or the same point keeps coming back again and again and again and again, and you can't move past it, that is what you should be really concerned about and we should be addressing. And inshallah, as I said, inshallah, if we do part 2 or something, I intend, inshallah ta'ala, to address some of these. Of course, you feel more comfortable to speak about them. But here are some steps that were recommended in dealing with doubts. Number 1, if you have any of these doubts and and it's causing you to struggle with your faith or make you question the existence of Allah, or make you question the validity of the Quran, or the truthfulness of the Prophet ﷺ, or the legitimacy of the Prophet ﷺ, or anything else, any of the main pillars of Iman, right? Or any of the main pillars of Iman, then the first thing that you must do is search for the roots of your doubts. And you have to be honest with yourself. By the way, none of this is going to work if the person is not humble, honest, and dedicated. Because we're talking about your faith here. We're talking about the most valuable thing that you've got as a human being, right? I mean, if somebody comes to you and says, by the way, you're not, let's say somebody casts a doubt about your paternity or maternity, or like, this is not your real child. And then you start like obsessing about it. Are you going to say, yeah, I'm not sure, I cannot be certain, and then just walk away? Or are you going to investigate? You're going to do your due diligence. And some people might go as far, if the doubt persists, they might go as far as, doing or taking a DNA test. And, you're not just simply going to act upon the doubt, right? So when the doubt comes, you need to be dedicated and you need to be honest with yourself and search or dig deep into the roots of the doubt. Where is it coming from? What is causing it? Right? Whether it's an internal factor or an external factor. Right? Is it simply because being a Muslim or practicing Islam doesn't look good, doesn't fit, it's embarrassing you, right? It's politically not correct. You can no longer defend it. You're embarrassed by someone else's actions. Is it, inconvenient? It's just sometimes some people it's inconvenient. There are many truths and many facts that are not convenient, right? Yet, just because it's inconvenient, we don't dismiss it or reject it, right? Every day. I mean, there are a lot of things that are not, So, is it convenience? Is it pure emotionalism? You're just, emotionally, Is it some, So you need to examine the root cause of this. And Sheikh Mustafa, I think, would agree with me, and he may have addressed this in the past, but we find that in many of the cases that we deal with, or we try to, that there is trauma, for instance. Somebody was offended by someone, and so they take it out on their faith or their religion. I'm like, are you serious? I mean, you're going to abandon your faith just because somebody offended you, some religious guy or traumatized. Now, by the way, I'm not minimizing or dismissing the effect of this emotionally. But that should not, shake the foundation, right? The rational foundation of your faith. Because as we said, faith is a rational conclusion. Number 2, examine or clearly or courageously examine the alternatives. What is your alternative? Sometimes, we all get these issues. My response, step number 2 is where everything vanishes to me. I'm like, because I studied, different religions and I studied Islam, I have come, and again, I have come to the conclusion that if Islam, if the Quran, if Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if this is not the truth, or any of it is not the truth, then there is no truth. Doesn't exist. Nothing makes sense. Nothing else makes sense. And I'm just being very, someone might say, wait, how about agnosticism? Or how about atheism? And by the way, this happens to a lot of people. They get traumatized, or they get hurt, or they rebel, or they don't like a particular religion, so what happens to them? The reaction is that, there is no religion. And then in many of these cases, including, by the way, people who claim to be atheists, they all end up in any debate or discussion becoming agnostics. So because I believe, by the way, the existence of God is so self-evident that there is no way to disprove it. By the way, every atheist, even those who say, prove to me that God exists. Right? Now my short answer to them is, prove to me that He doesn't. And they can't. They can't. And the other day somebody asked me last week, I told him, that logical progression or logical proof or evidence is stronger than scientific, physical evidence, right? Right? Logic is logic. Science is based on what? It's based on logic. Right? Based on logic. So logic is a powerful tool. Of course, we all must ask ourselves at some point, who gave us that power? Why, as human beings, the ones who are supposed to believe and not believe and are held accountable, why us, out of all the creation, develop this capacity to reason and develop this thing, have this thing called logic? Right? I'm not talking about personal logic. I'm talking about pure, flawless, perfect logic. Our logic as individuals could be tainted or it could be impaired because of our experiences, lack of knowledge, a lot of things. But generally speaking, pure logic. And logic is not something that you can touch. Right? It's there, we know that. It's a power that we have. That is part, in my opinion, that's part of the tools Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us to come to the conclusion that He exists. Let me give you a logical imperative. Causality. Right? That every effect must have a cause. This is a logical imperative. There is no way around it, right? Everybody agrees, right? Every effect must have a cause. So now we have this beautiful, existing, material universe or cosmos that we all sense and see. We're part of it. Where did it come from? Logically speaking, it cannot have begotten itself. It cannot have made itself. Because logically, it must have come into existence in order to bring itself into existence. Nor do things pop out of nowhere. Right? Things don't just come. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by the way, uses this imperative in the Quran. Allah says, أَمْ خُلِقُوا مِنْ غَيْرِ شَيْءٍ أَمْ هُمُ الْخَالِقُونَ. Were they created out of nothing, or are they themselves the creators? This verse, when the Prophet recited it, Jubayr ibn Mut'im, right, said, I was blown away. I felt like my heart was going to burst. It was like he was hit by, somebody punched him in the face. Logically speaking, when that hit him, he said, oh my God. And before that, he denied, Ba'ath, and denied. He's like, the logical conclusion is, it must have come from someone, from something. Jubair bin Mut'im. أم خلقوا من غير شيء أم هم الخالقون أم خلقوا السماوات والأرض بل لا يوقنون. Surah Al-Tur. Tur. And he came to the Prophet and he said, I bear witness that there is no God worthy to be worshipped and that you're the messenger of God. Only God can speak like this. It was, and before that this was enough to register, to finally make it clear to him. So that, where all of this originated from, the one that produced this is God. So the existence of God cannot be denied. Now the next step would be, people will ask you, why does that God have to be the God of Islam or Muhammad, the one that Muhammad called to and all that? That's another discussion. Of course, because there's consistency that you won't find in any. And there is clarity. It's very clear. The concept of God in any other faith that I examined, in any other religion that I examined, is crazy. It has the concept of God in Quran or in Islam. There's nothing that you can say about it. It's very consistent, very clear as to who God is, right? Without getting into the details. So what I'm saying is, consider the alternatives. If God exists, there must be a path leading to Him. There must be a purpose for which He created us. God could have not just, by the way, the cosmos itself, the creation tells you a lot about the Creator. So He could have not created us and gave us everything that we need to live and to sustain ourselves, and right? And then neglect or forget about telling us about Him and about who He is and what He wants from us and how He wants us to pursue it. There is no way that He could have, imagine if somebody basically starts a family, right? Just for the heck of it, and then just walks away without taking care of this family or without telling this family what they need to, without providing guidance for this family. Supervision. We will call that person, right? That's a crime, isn't it? Legally it's a crime, but it's morally also a crime. Ta'ala Allah. There's no way that God could have created all of this and made it like this sophisticated universe that we're part of, and just left it, abandoned it all. He created it and He said, you go figure it out, make up your own way, do whatever you want. I have no purpose for you, I have no goal, I have no aim, I have nothing for you. There is no point of your existence, and you can do as you wish. And by the way, early on, as a student, I came to discover this, as I one time sat down and had a very honest discussion with an atheist from East Germany, back then. We came from God doesn't exist, there is no evidence of God existing, to the real issue. After about an hour and a half of going back and forth, we came to the final conclusion. Listen, I know that God exists, it makes sense, nothing else, but I'm not ready. But it's too scary for me to think about what He wants from me. Right? Because when we came to the conclusion that God exists, okay, I submit to that. Don't you think He wants something from you? I know He must want something from me, but I'm not ready. Right? I know I belong to this family and I have obligations towards this family, but I'm not ready to come out of my bubble and to come out of my world and do, people have this kind of, to evade. By the way, this is very interesting, the word shirk. Shirk? What does shirk in English mean? No, shirk in English. Shirky. S-H-I-R-K. To avoid something. To avoid or neglect your responsibility. That's what the word shirk in English means. Guess what the word shirk in Arabic means? Same thing. It's the same thing. Trying to run away from God, basically, and avoid your obligation towards Him. That's what shirk. So anyways, confront the alternatives. What is the alternative? Now, many people, by the way, at this point, they need to consider the following. Their understanding, if someone says, well, to me, they all look the same. All religions look the same. There is no difference between them. I can just pick any one of them. That means you don't know your religion. And you don't know the other religions. I can tell you that. You don't know your religion, right? Number 3, the third step. Check into or examine your unmet expectations. Some of us have expectations. Well, not some. All of us have expectations. We expect God to be a certain way. We expect faith to lead to or offer us something. We expect the Quran to be, we expect the Prophet, we expect the Sunnah, whatever, the area of your doubt or your struggle might be, we have expectations. Are these expectations real? Are these expectations true? Are these expectations, were they supposed to even be there? Right? Our unmet expectations, and this is, by the way, the number one problem with most people, right? I could say with all of them, that some of their expectations were not met. Were these expectations realistic? Were these expectations, like for instance, people who expect that God is good, God is merciful, so they have to get everything they want. And life has to go exactly the way they wish. And if anything goes wrong, then they take it out on, how could God do this to me, or to my family, or to innocent people, or, right? For instance, some people struggle is something, remember, we're saying a struggle with faith. So some people, they feel like they're not supposed to struggle in life. Life is supposed to be comfortable. Yet, the Quran says, and God says that this life is not a struggle-free, it's not pain-free, it's not, you're going to be challenged and you're going to have issues to see whether you're going to endure or not. Right? Number 4, examine or identify your own weakness, bias, or baggage, or whatever the issues. Right? Consider that. Courageously look into your own weakness. I'll give you an example. If I come and I say, Salah doesn't make sense. Just because I am not disciplined. Just because, right, I just don't want to pray. Or it could be anything else. It could be, I don't know, it could be hijab, it could be anything, any of the obligations. Now, just because I have issues, I have my own weakness or my own struggle in one of these branches, areas, is that enough to make me doubt the foundation, the creed, the belief itself? Just because I'm having personal struggle, I'm having a weakness, Shaykh, maintaining 5 times prayer. So, okay, you're telling me you cannot maintain the 5 daily prayers. You're struggling with it. Therefore, is the logical conclusion, or therefore, Islam is not the real religion, or God, or Prophet Muhammad? I mean, do you get my point? Do you get what I'm trying to say? So you should not make your own, identify the weakness. The issue is with me. I'm the one who's struggling. That leads us to the final point, right? Pray. Do not underestimate the power of prayer. And when I say pray, by the way, including the formal, 5 daily prayers, they are, by design, meant to keep us connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I was told by people, people who deal with youth and, college students, right? I was told that almost in every case that individual was aware of or tried to help, before the final step of people drifting away from the religion or not practicing anymore, before taking off their hijab, before, making strange claims on Facebook or social media, before any of this, there was abandonment of prayer. They stopped praying. When you stop praying, then Shaitan will prey on you. You're a great target. When you stop praying, right? I know people who don't practice the religion, or do not practice some of the obvious teachings or elements of the religion, yet they do not abandon their prayer. Their prayer, and these people are fierce defenders of Islam. Sheikh Mustafa, for instance, today was sharing with me someone who was upset. Right? He was telling me about this sister, as liberal as that a person can get, a liberal activist, doesn't wear hijab, full make, But she was upset at quote-unquote imam or chaplain who basically was telling Muslim women, take off your hijab nowadays because, your hijab could be a huge challenge, right? So therefore you should take off your hijab. And she just blasted him. She said, how could he tell women, right, not to practice what the religion obligates? Though herself doesn't wear hijab, she doesn't want to wear hijab, or maybe, But she acknowledges, right? How could someone say this? I bet you that person is committed to her salah. There are some people who appear to be religious in their very religious in their appearance, but when it comes to salah, they're not serious about salah. It is, obvious. One of the obvious elements of salah is that we say, "Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim," guide us to the straight path. Imagine you repeating that desperately and genuinely 17 times a day. You think God will let you go astray? You beg Allah for guidance 17 times a day, right? In salah, and you're committed. If God exists, He will not let you go astray. And God exists. So I'm convinced that people who beg God genuinely and sincerely, right, and are committed, to and ask Him for guidance, they will be guided. And they will stay on the right path. Someone asked me a question here, a pastor asked me, why do you Muslims pray 15 times a day and you beg God for guidance? Aren't you already guided? And it was a Christian evangelical pastor. They came. So and there are some Muslim brothers with me, and they're like, and we were all like, how are we going to respond to this? So I just said to him, but we don't take guidance for granted. The fact that we ask God for guidance and to keep us upon the path is an indication of being guided. The day you stop asking God for guidance, you're gone astray. When you turn on your GPS, you want to, once you put your destination and you start the journey, you don't want to disconnect. If your GPS stops, if it doesn't connect with the satellite, then what's the point? So you want to make sure that you stay and you don't stop guidance until you reach your destination. Right? So we beg Allah. And here is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and there are plenty of supplications and dua by the Prophet asking God to guide him. And he's the most guided, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, asking God to guide him, begging Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for guidance, thanking Allah for guidance, giving credit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for guidance. This is all part of dua. And by the way, and I will conclude with this, and I want to open the floor for some Q&A. And by the way, not taking guidance for granted, and this attitude was that of the companions of the Prophet as well. As hard as you work, at the end of the day, guidance and remaining guided and being strong and being firm is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you have to thank Allah for that. The companions used to say, Wallahi lawla anta mahtadayna. Oh Allah, if it wasn't for you, we would have not been guided. In my opinion, there's a difference between people who pray with that kind of attitude and people who feel that God owes them something. Right? People who humbly pray and say, God, if it wasn't for your grace, we would have not been guided. And always express and show gratitude to God. So inshallah, there are let's take questions, comments or suggestions. Or if you have any particular issue that you think we should discuss from the issues that we feel are causing doubt or uncertainty, you can bring it up, inshallah. Yes.
So, no one made this one particular website with regards to Islam and the anti-Islam bashing, bringing the scientific proof, saying, picking shape from the ayahs of the Quran and the hadith
Like what?
Like there's a hadith of Prophet that the sun, before it rises, it takes permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then it sets under the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and when the day of judgment or the last day comes, it lasts for 100 years, will not be kind for it. So there are certain of these things that, when one is looking at it, it's like, okay, is there something more to it that we don't know, or perhaps there's wisdom in it, but someone, a layman is looking at it.
Okay. Okay. Generally speaking, what Brother Imtiaz is asking about has to do with narrations, prophetic narrations that are attributed to the Prophet ﷺ. And pay attention to this. He's saying that they pick on some hadith, and they say the hadith says the sun rises from, the sun before it rises, it takes the permission of Allah, and then when it sets under the throne of Allah. So, right? So, I'm yet to find anyone showing me any significant, right? Or anything that of substance that goes against the Quran itself. Right? So there are some people who say, well, while we cannot prove that the Quran, we cannot disprove, or that the Quran, we cannot disprove the Quran. We cannot say that it's not a legitimate document or revelation. Right? They have other ways to try to. The main attack is on the prophetic tradition and the Sunnah and the statements of the companions. Some of which, by the way, may not even be the Prophet's statement. They're attributed to the Prophet. It could be the meaning may have been delivered. So now when it comes to the prophetic tradition, right? We got to be very careful. But if you tell me that this hadith this statement cannot be said by a prophet, a legitimate prophet, I'll ask you, what about the Quran? So, what about the Quran? Can you, right? Where in the Quran does it say? So the answer, to that particular question is, there are some ahadith that some scholars, even people like Ibn Hajar, that had hard time understanding. They said it's authentic. When they applied the criteria of the scholars of hadith, they said the hadith is authentic. We can trace it back to the Prophet ﷺ not with 100% certainty, but there is a good chance that the Prophet ﷺ said it, so we have to accept it as a legitimate statement by the Prophet. But we don't understand it. Simply. Right? The one thing, though, that we always should focus on, take it back to logic. Is there anything wrong logically with what you're saying?
You can explain that.
Yeah.
Technically, everything is under the...
Yeah. So do we understand the meaning or how it happens? No, we don't. I'll take you. Dr. Mustafa Mahmoud, in his clip, for instance, he mentioned what? Revelation. One of the things that early Arabs or early people, doubted, or they were like, they said, how could God speak to a human being through an angel? And what are angels? How could, the transmission take place so fast? Right? When the Prophet, peace be upon him, was taken from Mecca to Jerusalem, and then from Jerusalem to heaven in one night, and he came back, the Meccans thought that they finally found a proof to discredit him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Meccans went to Abu Bakr, and Abu Bakr was busy doing some work. They said to him, listen to what your friend is saying. He said, what? He said, he claimed that he ascended to heaven and came back on the same night. In one night. No, he went to Jerusalem, which takes, it's a month's journey. And then he ascended to heaven, and then he came back. They thought Abu Bakr was going to be shaken. You see, Abu Bakr was way ahead of his time. Abu Bakr was a true believer. He was a logical person. Without being shaken, without any hesitation, what did Abu Bakr say to them? He said, إِنْ قَالَهَا فَقَدْ صَدَقَ. If he said it, then it's true. إِنِّي أُصَدِّقُهُ فِي خَبَرِ السَّمَاءِ أَتِيهِ. I already have submitted to believe in something that is even more profound. Revelation coming to him instantly from heaven. That is even greater. So if you believe that, then you have to accept this. Then he goes to the Prophet and he said, Messenger of God, in excitement. He didn't say, go to him and say, Messenger of God, they said that you said, is it true? No. He went to him, he said, Messenger of God, tell me all about it. He's already, So what I tell, in one of my classes, what I tell the students is that now we have something called cell phones, where I send you a text message right now, right? Imtiaz. It leaves this room, the text message leaves this room, goes God knows where. It turns around and it instantly comes to you. As soon as I hit send, next thing I know is, right? On your end. You received it. It could be a digital image. It could be an image. Leaves this room, comes in a fashion that I don't know. If I told this to my dad, let alone my grandfather, they will say, you're lying. This cannot happen. Right? So if anything, our generation, more than ever before, should be able to easily, come to terms with this concept of revelation. Yet it was something very strange in the past. So maybe we'll possess the tools to understand some of these hadith or statements that we find problematic, that we find a hard time understanding. But none of these statements go against established, whether it's scientific fact or in any of the fundamentals of the faith itself. Yes? So that doesn't do it for me, But again, even if somebody comes to me and says, Prophet Muhammad said this, I was like, okay, so what's the alternative? My answer to him is, what's the alternative? For me to believe that Earth is 5,000 years old? Give me a break. Get me something better. Even in the Quran, that argument is used. Give me a book that is more guided than this book, that is more consistent, that is more accurate than this book. بِكِتَابٍ أَهْدَى مِنْهُ أَتَّبِعْهُ. Allah said to the Prophet, tell them, bring me a document that is better than this, I will follow it. So, yes, Abu Iyad. Abu Iyad.
Just wanted to also bring a story here about actually scientific observation, what NASA mentioned about Mars 2 or 3 years ago, when it stopped rotating in its default direction for a night or two, I think, and it stopped rotating the opposite way. And they said, well, the sun is rising on Mars from the west because
it reversed, yeah.
It reversed. And they said that this observation is going to happen to all other planets, including Earth, one time.
Yeah, physicists, by the way, they say, I asked physicists about this. He said, yeah, it's a possibility. Of course, we don't want that to happen because it will be costly, right? And of course, scientifically speaking, the scientific community says they don't want that to happen because it's going to be disastrous. But also from a religious point of view, we're told that if that happens, then that's the day of judgment. Next thing. So it's not something that we want to be proven. Yeah. But what I'm saying, that scientifically speaking, but of course logically it's possible. Scientifically speaking, it is likely to happen.
We thought like years before,
Yeah.
would this happen?
Yeah, I know. But what I'm saying, logically, even years before, logically it's possible. There's a difference. Scientifically speaking, it's most likely. It's inevitable. It's inevitable. It will happen. They know it. Yeah.
Actually, they have proof that polarities change.
Mm.
And one day, as we say,
It's inevitable.
Shams Hatif.
Yeah, it will happen. It will.
That
Yeah.
polarity, not only that, but they can measure it.
They can
They
make.
can tell you where the polar north was this many thousands of years.
Mm.
So it's like scientific fact.
Abu Muhammad. Sisters, any questions from the sisters side? Yes.
You mentioned that the Surah Al-Fasir,
Mm. Mm.
this is actually a challenge to the rejectors of faith, the kuffar, to deny the truthfulness of the Quran.
Mm.
And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opened the universe for them and their own bodies and their own creation to explore and
The universe, yeah. Yeah. But I believe also not only is it a challenge for them, but each and every single one of us. Remember what Dr. Mustafa Mahmoud, for instance, said. He had that experience. Yeah, go ahead. It increases in iman. Yeah. Yeah, but further than that, what I'm saying is we're going to, if you look, no, I'm not talking about iman increasing. I'm talking about you having evidence, what you need to know that this is the truth. You're going to experience it somewhere. You have already experienced it or you will experience it. You're going to have one or multiple experiences in life that will bring you to this conclusion. What people choose to do is, no, not now, I'm not ready, or they forget. He could have forgotten about the dream. I'll give you an example. My wife was telling me how somebody that she knew very well, they came back to the religion and to practice the religion because of a dream that they had. And a dream is just another word. By the way, you don't have to be a special person to see a dream. Anyone, and a dream that comes true, because even Pharaoh, we're told Pharaoh had a dream. So you don't have to be someone very special. But because of the dream, they came back to the religion. But what happened? Right? What happened? They did not maintain. And the effect of the dream after about 10 years faded away, so they went back to their old ways. And by the way, rarely do people go back to their old ways. What happens actually, they go back to being even worse. They would do things that they did not do except doing, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us. It's very important that when you see something like this, not to look down upon it, because it could happen to any one of us. It could happen to any one of us. Yes? Okay. So doubt is a persistent misconception, right? Or uncertainty, right? Disbelief is to basically fully come out and say, I reject this, or I don't accept it, or I no longer practice it, or I no longer adhere to it. So disbelief is a step even further, where the person actually declares, or practically they're like, I don't believe in it. They reject. So you see, doubt phase is as dangerous as it is. The person can still come back and still get rid of this doubt. But once they come to disbelief, they have to start the journey again. They have to come back to the religion. They have to basically, yeah. But having a doubt is not a sign of disbelief. But it could be a precursor. It could be, and what I'm saying is that we need to deal with it beforehand. And I know Samir is big on this, that, aqeedah, belief, understanding the belief and studying it, before you even get to the doubt phase, people who are more immune to who are more connected or study and understand. I'm not saying people who are told, you have to do this, you're a Muslim, you have to believe in it. I'm not talking about that. People who understand, who's your Lord? Allah. Why? 1, 2, 3. How did we come to that conclusion? People who people who were rationally, taught to rationalize the existence of God and everything that is connected to it, and are taught the basics. And they're taught why. Not only what, but they're taught why. That's it. When the doubt or any incident or experience happens, they're able to deal with it, to handle it. Again, there could be situations where individuals, deal with like deep traumatic, emotional, experience, or have mental or emotional instability that causes them to, where they cannot, get rid of these these thoughts and stuff like that. That's a different issue altogether. And there are certain cases where the scholar said the person is beyond being held accountable if they cannot control these thoughts, and if they are medicated and the medication is not working and all that. Halas, there. Yeah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. Any particular topic or subject or that you've heard of that you think we should consider for next time, in terms of that people raise concerns about and people try to look for like rational response to it? Yes. Who? Okay. Okay.
It's a very interesting one and could answer many of the questions that the sister has asked about.
Sure.
Question of doubt and logic and science and theories and proofs and this and that.
By the way, Dr. Imad is a great asset because 2-3 weeks ago there were questions about evolution and creationism and all of that, and he actually wrote a book, titled لَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ. In it, there's a section in which where's Tariq? Tariq is not here. Where and Dr. Imad is a scientist, Dr. Imad Bayan, where he actually discusses evolution and all the various holes within the theory of evolution. I mean, by the way, within the scientific, honest scientific community, they know the theory of evolution is full of holes. It has so many discrepancies. I will just share with you one that he told me. Again, sorry if I do not remember all but he said, how there are different stages. Before Homo sapiens, there were Homo erectus. The various. Anyone remember? No, Neanderthals. Basically, before that, there were different. There were at least 3 major stages before Homo sapiens came into existence, of evolution. So the idea was that stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 were apart from each other by millions of years, right? So it took millions of years to go from here to here to here to here. But then what happened is, he said there was a recent discovery, I forgot where, Arkansas, somewhere here in America, where they found, remains. Archaeologists found remains that belong to, one that belongs to stage 1, another one that belongs to stage 2, a third one that belongs to stage 3. But when they did carbon dating, they found out that all of them came same time. He said this shook the scientific community. Because now it pretty much, if this is proven and if it's established, of course, research and documenting this and all of that takes sometimes, years or a decade. Or if this is established, that's it. The whole theory that it took so many million years for this to disappear and then move and become this, and then for it to disappear and become this, and then finally, Homo sapiens, human beings, came into existence, this whole thing is destroyed. This shows that these 3 things that they found, these 3 were 3 different species that lived at the same time, and they have nothing to do with Homo sapiens. Homo sapiens are a different species. So,
not only that, but also
yeah.
the transition, the things where they say the fetus came before they moved into reptiles and then the birds and everything. There's no transitional feature in between.
No.
They never have been able to find a skeleton or a fossil that attest to that.
Yeah, and that's why until this day it remains to be what? Theory.
But it's well propagated.
Of course. The scientific community has vested interest in establishing it as almost a fact, as a scientific, when it's not. They do. I'll conclude. By the way, one of these movies that I don't think you should watch it, but Dawkins, right? Dawkins. I always confuse Hawkins and Dawkins. Steve, huh? No, Stephen Dawkins. So it's Stephen Hawkins. So Stephen is Hawkins, right? The guy, the Cosmo guy with the chair. Yes. Stephen Hawkins. I know that his first name is Stephen, but I always call him Stephen Dawkins. I don't know where. Stephen Hawkins, by the way, there's a movie about his life, and there's a book, of course. I heard that recently he's not doing very well, right? But you might want to read his book or watch the movie, where basically the guy says God exists. The guy basically is saying, his dream is to go back in time to, as he says, ta'ala Allahu amma yaqulun, to say, so he can read God's mind. For what? When people ask him what? To understand the purpose of all of this. And that's where he leaves it. SubhanAllah. His first wife, who was very supportive of him and everything, was a Christian. She believed in all of that, and she always tried to, and she was relieved when he finally told her that God must exist. There is, but still he cannot come out to the scientific community and start talking about this or propagating this, or otherwise he's going to lose his, but again, it's something that is documented. You can find it on YouTube, him talking about God, and so pretty much the consensus now, even amongst atheist scientists, is that God exists. We cannot prove that God doesn't exist. But they claim that they do not have enough or substantial evidence to prove that God exists. That's fine. You don't accept it, that's fine. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Allah knows best, inshallah. If you believe that we should, inshallah, discuss this any further, please let us know. What I would like to see is, I would like us, inshallah ta'ala, next time to bring our, college-age students or children, inshallah ta'ala, because the intention is, inshallah, to, next time I would like to have 2 scientists with us, inshallah, here, to respond or answer the specifics, respond to the specific issues that people have. Again, one of the most common problems that many of our youth have is that they try to judge Islam based on biblical beliefs. Like, for instance, one of the youth came to me and he said, I was watching this debate between a Christian theologian and an atheist. And he said he just kept destroying all the arguments. The creationists, he just kept saying the creationists. I said, but that's not fair comparison. Because many of the big major issues that you find in the problematic in the Bible, from a scientific point of view, the Quran doesn't agree. The Quran doesn't say anything about them, or it does not even. It actually says the opposite. So there is nothing in the Quran that, yet until this day, there is nothing in the Quran that goes against a scientific fact. As a matter of fact, many scientific, facts are actually, you might find Quranic verses or revelations that support them. So, Allah knows best, inshallah ta'ala. We can continue this discussion in the future. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.